In this video article, I'm going to follow up my previous video where I answered a student's question about what was the best masterclass or maestro style course for beginning writers to take, and in that course I suggested Gary Provost's novel writing workshop was the best one to take. This video article is an overview of Gary's 5-level outlining structure to write a novel. Now that's a screen grab of the video novel workshop. The problem is you can't get that at the moment. It's not being sold anywhere. I've been told by Gary's widow that there may be someone taking it over and releasing it and having it available for sale. As and when that happens, and as and when I find out about it, I will do a video saying, hey, I've talked about this in the past and various things from it. There's going to be a series of video articles as a result of this video. And when I know it's back live again, I'll make sure you know. But you can, in the meantime, buy this book, How to Write a Story. This is based on Gary's notes and some of the content in the video novel workshop. I think it's $2.99 on Kindle, so definitely worth getting hold of this. And one final caveat before I get into the 5 building blocks of a novel, 5 levels of a novel, is Gary specifically pitched this more towards beginner writers. It was a way of breaking down the overwhelm of writing an 80,000, 90,000, 100,000 word novel into specific structural steps that would be manageable for a beginner writer, but also would result in a well-structured dramatic story. Now, obviously, if you're more of a discovery writer, this kind of thing is something you might do after you've written your first draft. This is definitely leaning more towards the outlining spectrum of writing. So let's dive in. So the building blocks of a novel, there's 5 of them. There's the structural spine, which is a top-level overview from inciting incident to decision. I'll talk more about the parts of the structural spine in the next slide. The sequences, that's a series of connected scenes. There is individual scenes, but also exposition and half scenes. There is a thing Gary called swings, which is character strategy variations, which is how characters approach achieving scene goals. This is something that's new to me. I don't think I've seen anyone write about this before. So I'm looking forward to, I'm going to do a video on each of these steps. I'm looking forward to doing this one because I will have to dive into this a little deeper, watch the section of the video that talks about this a lot more, perhaps read in the How to Write a Story book as well, and really consolidate my understanding of this. And then the final level is actions, which is sentence level movement. So structural spine, this is the fundamental architecture of the novel, and it includes 8 non-negotiable dramatic events. Those are, some of these you'll be familiar with, some of them you might be familiar with other terminology. Gary's terminology are the inciting incident, the prize or the goal of the story, the strategy, which is how the main character or characters are going to try and achieve the goal or achieve the prize, opposition and conflict. Obviously, if you come up with a goal, I'm going to take the ring to Mordor and throw it in, and Sauron sends one of his ring wraiths to take you there and do it, the story's over in 5 seconds and there's no conflict, there's no character growth, and so on. Stakes also need to be part of the structural spine. What's at stake in the story? Is it life and death? Is it the hero's going to meet the love of his life, or heroine's going to meet the love of her life? Are they going to get together and get married and whatever? There's a bleakest moment, often called All Is Lost or Dark Night of the Soul. There's a lesson or revelation, which is part of character growth, and then based on that, either in the climax or very close to the climax, the main character will take a decision which pivots the course of the story. This structure, Gary maintains, is the universal foundation of story, applies across all genres, and it's something that audiences in whatever genre unconsciously expect. We don't start reading a story without there being an inciting incident, or without the main character striving to achieve something, or without the main character having opposition and conflict. And as I've mentioned in some of the hero's journey video articles I've done, which you can find on my channel, these are guidelines, not blueprints. So they're not meant to be taken in a formulaic way. That's what I'm trying to say, is what they're designed for is to guide you map out the story that you want to tell. And so if your story is about a detective, let's say, who needs to rescue a kidnapped child, that will have very different, each of these 8 steps will be very different compared to, say, if your main character is a hobbit who needs to take the Ring of Power to Mount Doom. Obviously, that's not one of my stories. I wish it was, but it's not. So on we go. Second level of story blocks is sequences. Now, a sequence is a series of connected scenes that work together to achieve a specific narrative purpose. Sequences is something that is not talked about or taught as much as I think it should be. There are a couple of screenwriting guys who have sequence methods of writing screenplays, which could be adapted for novels, but I think they have it too. So the one I'm thinking of is by a guy called Chris Soth, who splits a story into 4 parts, which is part 1, Act 1, first part of Act 2, second part of Act 2, and then the Act 3. And each of those acts then has a number of sequences to form it. And I think he's gone slightly higher level. I think there are more sequences. So, for example, if you've seen my hero's journey analysis of Harry Potter, I looked at that through the lens of the hero's journey. What you won't really have seen, because I've not filmed it yet or made a video about it, is I also then went the next level down and catalogued and codified all the sequences that make up the steps of the hero's journey in that Harry Potter film. And I think there were 26 or 27. I've just done a hero's journey analysis of the Hunger Games. Next job is to do the same thing with sequences. So sequences are a series of connected scenes. Like in a romantic comedy, it might be the scene where the hero goes to do something, or the heroine goes to do something, and they meet the person who they're going to fall in love with, and that might be 3 or 4 scenes for us to get the idea, hey, this character is really keen on this character. So that's what a sequence is. Each sequence has its own beginning, middle, and end while serving the larger story. Many writing teachers have talked about writing being fractal. Randy Ingemanson, who has done a thing called the snowflake method that you may have heard of, does it in reverse. So he starts out with a very tiny unit and gets bigger. This is starting out from the overall, and then we're working inwards. So either way works. What you need to find is your process and what works for you. Sequences are a great revision tool, and in my opinion, most people tackle revision in the wrong order. What they do is they start doing the line-by-line revision, where actually what you want to do first, your first revision pass, and this applies whether you're a discovery writer or an outliner, your first revision pass should be to identify that you've got the 8 dramatic units, or whatever story model you're using should have a number of dramatic units that form the spine of the story and give it all the main beats, which is the main character, the opposition, and what they're trying to achieve, the all is lost, night of the soul, dark night of the soul moment, all those kind of things. And then from there you go down into the sequences, and you look and see if the sequences are all working, whether there's some scenes you've got in the wrong place, whether there is redundant content that can be trimmed or moved, whether some of the sequences are missing story elements. So that would be my suggestion on how you go about working on revision of a longer form work, is start by checking the main structural units are there, and then go into the sequence level. The sequences should also create a narrative progression, so it should create story movement through. I put organised dramatic development. The word I actually should have used was logical, and then put in brackets, but unpredictable, so that the story moves in the kind of way that we've come to expect from consuming stories right from when we were young, and getting stories in the very basic children's stories, to then we're now adults. We consume stories either by reading or by watching films or by watching long-form TV series. Some of the long-form TV series, by the way, and I'm thinking of the first 6 or so seasons of Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, The Sopranos, Mad Men, things like that are much higher quality from a dramatic perspective and from a writing perspective than certainly most of contemporary Hollywood output. The main person I would put as an exception of that is Christopher Nolan. His films are great and complex, and whatever kind of writer you are, if you think, I'm going to watch a film with my other half or on my own to relax, try and watch all of his films because they're all great. Okay. The next level down is scenes, expositions, and half scenes. You can have, so they're the 3 types of scene you can use. You can have full dramatic scenes, so each sequence will be made up of a number of scenes. You can have exposition scenes, which give background, preferably only when readers need it, and even more preferably if you can give the exposition within active scenes rather than stop and have some kind of info dump of exposition which brings the story to a shuddering halt. You can have half scenes as well, which might just be a paragraph which provides important info that's not necessarily dramatic on its own in an efficient way. So you can have small little connecting scenes that do that job within the overall arc of the sequence. Next level down, Gary calls swings, character strategy variations. This is characters using different psychological approaches to pursue scene goals, and it mimics realistic behavior, because when one approach doesn't work, a character can switch to a different approach. I've just gone back there. Let me just go forward again. Okay, there we go. These variations prevent predictable character behavior, so the same method of trying to solve a scene goal from scene 1 to scene 2 to scene 3. It prevents that kind of predictable behaviour, which helps keep the reader engaged, which of course is one of the goals of writing a fiction story. Is you don't want the reader to get bored at any point and go to another story or go and watch a film. And then the final level is actions. This is sentence level movement. There are 4 action types. There's physical movement, positional changes, gestural communication, or dialogue. And again, when we do a specific video on actions, which will be soon, I'll have more detail on each of these. One thing to know is whichever kind of action you use, it should move the story forward, and you can use action to manipulate the reading rhythm. If you want a scene to read really fast, you can have more action in it and lots of punchier sentences. That also helps with things like that. And if you want the reader to just have a contemplative lull, you can have less action, and again, the sentence level writing can just expand a little to echo that action stroke contemplation kind of rhythm in your writing and for the reader experience. Important point, hence it's in all caps, I'm not going to shout. Each sentence has to earn its place. It either provides character development, plot advancement, or emotional progression. This is directly from Gary. I think that's a really important sentence that we should all, as writers, be aware of. Okay, in the next episode, I'm going to do a video article going into greater detail on the first level, the first building block of novels as suggested by Gary, and that is the structural spine. I've got comprehensive notes being put together as I speak about from Gary's video novel workshop, so it's another way of trying to kind of access the content. I'm not selling them or anything like that, but they're given away free as a bonus for joining the Writing Vault, which I'll talk to you in a minute about. If you've got any questions or comments, email me, paul@deliberate-practice.com. That's the best way to contact me at this point in time. And I think, as I said in the previous video, at this point in time, the channel's only 6-7 weeks old, and numbers are starting to grow, and I'm starting to get more email questions, but it's still only a couple every other day, that kind of thing. While that's the rhythm, I can answer every question in a bit of detail, and it also gives me a chance to go, oh, that was a great question, I can create a video about that, as I did with the Maestro or Masterclass video that you may have watched. At some stage that will become impossible. So now, it's July the 13th, I think today, or 14th, now is a good time to do that. In the future, I may be less able to give detailed answers. And then finally, if you're a frustrated and or aspiring fiction writer, you might want to check out my resource that I put together. You can see the URL there, and there'll be a link in the description that's below this video on YouTube. There's also some really interesting bonuses coming later this week or in the next week or two, and I'll keep you up to date on those, so keep your eye on that. So thank you for your time watching this. I hope it's been of interest. It's certainly, when I encountered this concept, it was the first time I'd seen anyone split the method of structuring a novel into levels like that, which I thought was really eloquent. I got caught between eloquent and elegant then, both of which were words I wanted to say. So I think it was really eloquent and it's elegant, and it could be something that you use in your writing process for long form fiction writing, or it's something, maybe like me, you take that kind of idea and adapt it and put your own bits in each of the levels. Maybe you have 4 levels, maybe you have 6, but it's a really interesting way of looking at writing a novel that will be, and outlining a novel as well, that will be very well structured and very well ordered, and should produce a piece of writing that tells a story in a manner that certainly I would want to see as a writer, and that hopefully a reader will want to see as a reader. So that's this video. Thank you for your time. I'll catch you in the next video.